as the cryptocurrency culture persists and triumphs our vision of the future of finances, the central banks are researching, planning, scrambling, all right, to release CBDCs, right? We're going to be talking about what CBDCs are, despite the legal risks that are associated with this, the financial and reputational risk, right? CBDCs might pose to central banks. They're still under motion with this. And we currently know that according to most CBDC law, or well, central bank law, CBDCs are not really allowed to issue digital currencies to the public. Now, of course, this is still happening and it has some advantages to it, right? But the setbacks or the drawbacks from CBDCs cannot be ignored. And in this video, we're going to be taking a deep dive into CBDCs and the central bank. Double up.
We're going deep, baby.
We're going all the way into it. Stack Nation, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Brazen.
And your boy Double O.
All right. So let's kick it off with, well, I guess I should start with a question, Double O. Okay.
Yeah.
Central bank digital currencies. This is what CBDCs are. But my question to you, imagine that you were trying to catch a flight to Nigeria. And you had the funds. It's sitting there in your bank account. But for some reason, you can't buy this flight because the government doesn't want you to go. How would you feel about that?
We got a problem here.
Oh man, it is a problem. It is a problem, and it seems it's a problem. We're essentially tap dancing our way right into it, right? So I guess we should begin with. I mean, let's begin with the basics on this one. What is the central bank?
Yeah. Good point here. Let me go ahead and bring us to this view. I was just trying to figure out what to click there. Who is the central bank? What are the central bank? Right? Let's figure that out. So, number one, central banks. They are an independent national authority. Independent private national authority, which means that the government gave them the authority. Right? They are not the government. They are just an authorized institution by the government. Now, as you probably all know by now, which you're currently feeling, they get to control or conduct the monetary policies of whatever nations that gives them that authority, right? This includes moving your dollar or the value of your dollar any way they want, to the left, to the right, to the top, to the bottom.
Inflation, deflation, printing more money. Yeah,
I'm laughing, but it's not funny. Excuse me, folks. Excuse that call.
It is a tough reality.
And guess what? It's the chosen few that gets to burden this. It's a very, very chosen few that gets to burden this institution, right? And this is usually like the 0.01%, right?
I mean, isn't the central bank, isn't it just made up of a body of a couple banks across?
Yes.
I guess the governing bodies of the central bank.
Yes.
This is made up of a member group of banks, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So we can quickly jump to the next topic, which is the history of the central banks, right? How did we even come to this point while we're using central banks? Because before we understand CBDCs, we must understand the institution that is trying to create CBDCs, right? So right there, we're just going to jump right back to 1694 when the Bank of England, the first organization to issue a banknote, basically the US, the dollar that we're using now, it used to be, I don't think it was the euro back then, probably the pound sterling or whatever it was back then.
Yeah, it was probably sterling.
Yeah, it's gone through several designs. Yeah, exactly. So you have the Bank of England, and of course you see the Federal Reserve here in the US, 1913, which is very recent. We don't call them the central bank, but they are a central bank. You have the Bank of Japan, right? And then you also have the European Central Bank, which was started in 1998, which is quite recent, right? And as we mentioned earlier, they get to design the monetary policies, but they were given the authority by the government.
No, I mean, it's obviously we're looking at a what is essentially not a government entity yet.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been given so much power by the government.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are some of the functionalities, right? Say for someone who's new to this stuff and is like, yeah, what are these guys talking about? But the central banks affect our lives more than we know it. It seems to have its hand in almost everything in the economy.
Well, that kind of goes to the next topic here.
Right.
So, central banks, what do they really do for us, right? And this is quite an interesting chart that gives you an idea of what the central banks do. So you have the states, the country, which you have the flag right there. Quite interesting, right? With the flag. So the government gives the central bank the authority to basically print money, to create money policies and so on and so forth. The government creates, so you have private schools and you have government schools. You have government jobs and you have private jobs, right? The government controls some of that. They're supposed to govern that, right? But the same government has given the central banks the authority to print the currency that all this institution work. You have the pharmaceutical, the auto industry, the entertainment industry, the courts and the prisons, the military institutions, you have the factories, you have the technologies, and you have the real estate industry. Those are all governed by the government. But interestingly, if you look at this life cycle of your currencies, it's literally centrally controlled by the central bank. And some of the means that they use to control that are the commercial banks and the banks. So the banks loan money out to the pharmaceuticals, to all the different industries, even including the military. Although the government goes to war, you can say by looking at this diagram that it's not the government that is going to war, but maybe institutions or investors that are going to war for certain interests, right? So you can also say that the government is a business in a way, and a division of the government is this institution, a private institution that has been assigned to run the currency for whatever nation it is.
Oh, jeez. I mean, dude, overall, man, I think it's a massive responsibility that the central bank has. That's for sure.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're delegating all this power, right, to a few group of people who have personal interests, right? And so, obviously, over time, we have seen how this has played out, right? Whether, I mean, looking at where we are right now, you see where we are. Massive amounts of money printing, right? I get it. I mean, depending on the situation, right? Like in this case, we had this unique situation with the pandemic, which led to all of that money printing. But at the same time, even before we got here, we can tell that there's been repetitive situations, if you will, where the central bank and their handling of the dollar, if you will, hasn't been going so well. I mean, this is why we're here in the first place.
Is there?
Right? So starting from what, there, 1913? This is an interesting chart you have here. I see all these points in times where there's been like all these significant events. Tell us more, sir.
Well, I'll just keep it simple for the sake of time.
Right.
The value of the dollar has been decreasing over time.
Right.
And basically, this chart is showing you all the big factors that have created some dramatic impact. Like different recession periods that have caused dramatic impact to the dollar. And as we can see, we don't even have COVID here. So we might actually be going towards the negative, because this is just ending at the Trump tax cuts, right? And we don't even have the COVID charts here. So the question now is, what actually is the actual value of a dollar, right? Which is why everybody is screaming left and right. We are in trouble. The fiscal policy, the policies of the federal, the central banks is literally destroying our lives. And these people out there they're not lying. This is factual. It's right there in your face. It's right there in your face.
That's the crazy thing about it, man, because as we've been doing a lot of research, right? A lot of where we're getting this information is right on the same websites of the same people, right? So we're looking at IMF's website. What is the other one? The BIS right? Website, and it's like you look at the research and they put it there, and they give you all the details, and it's there, and it's like, well, how on earth do you guys think that this is a good idea, right? Because some of the things you're reading, and it's right on their website. It's not like anyone is hiding it. The question is just, will people read it, right? I
Yeah.
feel like that is really the big thing with why we're heading in the direction which we're heading now.
Mhm.
I think we've established that the central banks, right, obviously have a massive amount of power,
Yeah.
and it's I don't want to say private, but in
It's
some
not.
ways, right? It's not a government entity. It's not a public entity, if you will.
Mhm.
And as we roll forward into this new age of digital technology, one of the things that I would say has really been amazing is the appearance of things like stable coins and of course Bitcoin itself.
Mhm.
And the central banks now see that, hey, everything they do can be done without the corruption and without central power, right?
Mhm.
So in their effort to fight that, it seems the biggest answer at this point in time is CBDCs, right?
I
Go ahead.
think they also want to fight the fact that they're going to lose their centralized power. They have to play catch up, or they have to fight back for the reasons why they exist. Because
Yeah,
what says that the people cannot vote and tell the government that this is the currency that they prefer?
this is true. And again, as we've mentioned in some of our videos, and it's just history, society has always decided what money is going to be,
Yeah.
right? Versus being in this situation where a group of people decide what money is going to be, and then it kind of just goes from there. Now, the scary thing is they are turning to CBDCs, and
Hmm.
for those who are not familiar with what CBDCs are, this would be a central bank digital currency, right? It's on
Hmm.
the blockchain, but it's not the same as everything else. This is a centralized cryptocurrency, if you will, right?
Hmm.
And every aspect of it is controlled by the central. That's the interesting thing about it. Will it be controlled by the central banks or the government?
It's controlled by both of them, you
Or
know?
with everyone just take turns with the levers, man, and
Yeah,
just whip it
yeah,
as they see fit, right?
yeah.
So it's there's a bunch of countries right now. As you can see, we have what I think there's like over 40 something countries currently
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah.
either they're in the development stage, right? There's 41 countries. We're in the
Hmm.
research stage for sure.
Hmm.
9 countries have already launched, including China,
Yes,
and
sir.
it's very interesting seeing what is going on with China because the I think the Olympics are coming up,
Yes, sir.
and China is planning to do essentially the Olympic Village is everything there is going to be paid for
Hmm.
with the Chinese digital currency. And the sketchy thing about it is the amount of access that CBDCs can give governments,
Governments, yeah,
right?
and the banks.
Exactly, it's something that is straight up uncomfortable, if you ask me,
Mm.
right?
Preach.
So now the way these things work, you have because so there is we looked at this. There is this what was it? What do you call the intersectional
Yeah,
charts again, right?
it's the taxonomy of money, right? It's
Yeah,
like a
I cannot.
flower, the money
Yeah,
flower.
exactly. But I've forgotten the name of the circles. It's the Venn diagram. It's a Venn diagram, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. So we have this Venn diagram here, which shows how CBDCs are broken up, right? So there's essentially the way it's broken up right now. You have your general purpose accounts, and then you have your wholesale accounts. This
Mhm.
with the wholesale accounts, I guess access to wholesale accounts, CBDC wholesale accounts is just banks and other big corporations, right,
Mhm.
to interact with other companies, right, other banks, and the central bank as well. Then the general public will just have access to CBDCs, to general purpose CBDCs. And what is interesting to me about this are the features that comes with this, right? Because look, CBD CBDCs can be great, right? It definitely it has the ability to be great, but at the same time, I will also say that all the great things about it can be found in something like geez, I forgot the name of that coin. What is that coin again? Oh yeah, Bitcoin. Right? So it can be
Without
found
without the
exactly
without the infringement on your privacy.
without the infringement on your privacy, with so much more decentralization. I mean, and your rights as well. Right? I think it's also a moral thing. So, for one, I get it. CBDCs can be more efficient, right? You can do things like the government can better track economic activity, which, according to them, right? This is according to them. This is going to help with more efficient monetary policy, better settlements, right? So essentially, 24-hour banking is what it's going to be. But at the same time, it's like, well, are they really going to make better monetary policies based on that, or are they going to use that information to make policies that, I mean, because now they have access to information that they can use to make more policies that will be in favor of whatever they want it to be. What do you think?
I mean, CBDCs is good for China, for example. It gives an opportunity to escape the US dollar policies.
Right.
So it works for China. But I think CBDCs is very un-American. America is about freedom,
True.
right to your privacy. And when you have a tool or a financial technology such as the CBDC, it removes all of that because literally the government now have access to everything about your life, every single thing about your movement. You can't do anything without money. Money is everything.
This is true.
So if you pick a penny up, the government knows when you pick a penny up. Now, is that necessary? I think folks are already starting to complain about the government wanting access to your bank account and what you're doing with your Venmo account and so on and so forth. So that becomes further infringement into the government,
people's
into
privacy.
people's
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
And now the question now becomes, we vote you into office, but you are in cahoots with the banks to control us. That is the big question.
It looks like the public servants have lost their way. Right. Now, here's one thing. So this chart here just shows some of the comparisons between your cash as it is right now and some of the things that it offers compares to CBDCs. The interesting thing with CBDCs is that you can turn on and off certain features, right? So like interest-bearing accounts, whether the interest will be negative or positive, now that can just be automatically done with some keystrokes.
Yeah.
Limits and caps, so the Fed can now pump money into the system as needed, pull money out of the system as needed, and how does that affect you? It's something that you have to ask yourself, right? And of course,
The government, though, in this case, gets to see where the money is going much faster than the regular fiat.
this is true. And of course, they of course, one of their favorite reasons right now is that they'll be able to send money directly to people in the event of a catastrophe. But I mean, so I guess they're taking that example from let's say like when the pandemic first happened, with the stimulus checks and everything.
Yeah.
I guess if we had CBDCs, the government could have just directly given you money.
Much faster. And then you can make sure that you're giving money to the right people.
Exactly. But I mean, what are you willing to sacrifice for a little bit of convenience? I think there has to be a line somewhere. What would you say?
I guess that's just why we're doing this education, right? This is why we're doing what we do, is that people have given away their privacy just for the freedom of Facebook and WhatsApp. I'm one of them. We post on Facebook. But do you really want to do that with your actual life in this case? That's the question for you. Would you be willing to say you want faster money for the government to control every single piece of your life? Goes back to that question you asked at the beginning of the show. I want to travel back to the motherland, but apparently there's some major disease going on in the motherland, and the State Department says, "Oh, we want to avoid people from going there," just like President Trump did the old ban against Muslim countries. So
Yeah.
does that mean now that you cannot spend your money to travel abroad?
Well, that's interesting because at the same time too, it's even worse than that. They could stop you from sending money to another country, which that also brings up another point. Interoperability seems to still be an issue with this, right?
Yes.
Cross-border payments with CBDCs is not just going to be so straightforward because as other countries set up their CBDCs, they're not necessarily setting it up to be compatible with the US CBDC.
Preach.
Furthermore, I think that the CBDCs, I don't think the United States will release its own CBDC. They'll probably have one, but I think that for some reason, I still believe that they're going to lean towards working with USDC.
Bitcoin. USDC.
USDC stablecoin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I just think that, look, man, all these features are already offered by Bitcoin. Now, one of the biggest disadvantages, which is very interesting, because this is actually from the BIS website itself, right? And so it says, if demand becomes very large, central banks may need to hold less liquid and riskier securities, thereby influencing the prices of such securities and potentially affecting the market functioning. Central banks may also need to provide substantial maturity, liquidity, and credit risk transformation at times to both banks and markets. Since central banks could assume more important roles, they could have larger impact on lending and financial conditions. So, right there on the BIS website, they're essentially telling us, hey, this will expand the role of the central bank.
It basically gives them limitless power to print any amount of money.
Yeah. Affect markets. I mean, it's I get it. It's supposed to be a convenient innovation, but I think this is something that we really have to look at carefully before moving forward with it. You know, so I mean, things like this. It's really, I feel when as you keep going down this road of CBDCs and what the government tries to do to counter cryptocurrencies, I think it only makes a stronger case for cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
It just seems to make a stronger case for it, because I don't see a reason why. I mean, that is just the most un-American thing. How are they going to go about telling Americans like, hey, you know what? You're just under surveillance right now. Maximum surveillance. Forget everything. Rip those amendments, throw them in the trash. Welcome to 2022 or whenever they release their coins. This is the game now. I don't see that going over very well. What about yourself?
I'd kind of jump into the next video that we're going to do here in a little bit, which is if China has the yuan, the digital yuan,
yeah,
and as we already know, China already controls and monitors its entire citizenship, its entire citizen. America could do what's American by going decentralized, which has always been American, and go with Bitcoin. That would be Americans' answer to China.
But you can see it that way.
Yeah, because CBDCs is China's way of escaping the US dollar. Because right now, every country around the world need the US dollar as an intermediary before you can do any international exchange. China wants to move forward with the Silk Road around the world, and they need the currency to make that happen. The digital yuan, the CBDC, their CBDC will make that happen. That takes the US dollar out of the equation. The US, the Americans watching this show, in this case, might just want to think. You might want to pitch Bitcoin, which basically spills USA all over the screen, as a better solution against creating your own CBDC is basically going back to, okay, let's print our money, let's fight against the world. We might end up going to war with China because we're countering their own CBDC. It makes no sense. Bitcoin is more decentralized and gets us to what America is about.
Well, here's the thing, though, and here's why I think China is going to have a hard time with that. If China decides that they're going to do this, their Silk Road, well, I think they're already working on it. This is their Silk Road situation, right?
Yes, sir.
And they're going to transact with other countries. I don't see other countries wanting to take on the Chinese CBDC just to do business with them, and in the process exposing themselves.
That is why
exposing the amount of information they will have to expose by using that currency, because the currency it's tracking everything, right? Essentially in your account. I don't think, like, that's one thing where I wondered myself, like, do I want to go to China? Because now you're downloading this app on your phone, you're getting this CBDC, right? Where if you jaywalk, they can just
your social credit goes down.
Right, your social credit goes down, right? If you have a ticket, they just reach into your account and pull out the money.
Boom,
right?
out.
So what if you don't have the money? Now you're operating at a deficit,
Yes,
Then they
sir.
shame you on billboards as well. That's insane.
I still want to go to China just to experience China.
I
It's
mean,
good
look,
to
man,
travel the world. You know, we've never been there. That's what we've been told. Let's go
this
find
is
out
true. This is,
ourselves.
I might show up. I might show up, but
Hey,
I'm just
if you're
saying that
watching the
as you
show,
show up there, understand that these people are now in your brain.
yeah, if you're watching if you're watching the show and you've been to China, please let us know. How was
Exactly.
it? How much
Well, look,
control do
well,
they have?
I would still like to visit. I mean, I don't think that it is. It is as militarized as they make it seem. I think that it is just more so there is just this one
Advanced technology.
leadership, right? And they try to keep the people happy and keep them under the law. That's
Yeah,
it, you know.
yeah,
So
possibly.
that is what it is. But I mean, I think these are things that are. It's something that it's really worth looking at heavily, right? Before we take on this. Now, of course, one of the other things here, which now is interesting because when I was reading this, right, on their website,
Hmm.
it is put on there to seem like, hey, this is why this is great. But I look at it and I'm like, this is absolutely not great, right? So it says here, commercial banks could lose a valuable interface with their consumers, given that in some CBDC's design, they know your customer function could fall into the central bank. Central banks would have to take a much larger role in this field with associated costs. Central banks could also be called upon to provide information to tax and other authorities. Moreover, they could have to manage privacy and anonymity issues stemming from insights obtained from private transactions. So now that they have all your information, the government knows they have all your information.
What have they done with the information that they have right now? We always get hacked. Your
Oh my
social
god,
security is out
dude,
there,
man.
and
I
that's
feel
just your
like I
social
don't.
security number.
It's
That's
ridiculous,
all
bro. I don't
done.
even feel like I feel like I don't really need to like explain anything else. Like that just speaks for itself, man.
So
It's
basically, you're
like,
asking the government to do the work of Amazon and Apple and everything. They know everything about you
hey,
already.
you remember during Joe Biden's um during his
Presidential election
campaign. Yeah,
campaign,
during
yeah.
his campaign. Yeah. There was one interview he went to and he said they're trying to he was talking to black people, right?
Hmm.
And he was telling black people that the Republicans are bad, and essentially he said they were trying to put y'all back in chains.
Yeah.
Is what he said. Which, by the way, some of the thing Biden has said and gotten away with it, you really gotta ask black people like, did y'all hear what he said? Like, did you really hear what he said? Anyway, that's not the time and
Yeah.
place, but I feel like this is what that reminded me of. you know,
Um,
so
hey,
yeah,
again, this is another question out there to the audience, right? Do you want the bank to have access to your money,
this is true.
to your
Why
life?
or why not? Absolutely,
Why
that
or
is
why
a
not?
great question.
Yeah.
Actually, how would you guys feel about this? Comment down below. Let's talk
Hmm.
about it. Let us
Yes,
know how you
sir.
guys feel about it. All right.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, tune in to our next show. What are we talking about next, Double
Oh, next show.
O?
Bitcoin versus
Bitcoin versus the dollar, or
the dollar,
Bitcoin
right?
versus CBDCs, right?
Yes,
Because
sir.
that's where we're going now. And I'm looking forward to that one, man. It should be a good one. All right.
Hmm. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is all we have for this one.
Yes, sir.
Until next time, I would like to invite you guys to please subscribe to the channel. All
Hmm.
right. Just hit the subscribe button ever so gently. All right.
Yeah.
Follow us on our social media pages. We are on Facebook, Stack Fin. That's why we are there. Instagram, Stack Crypto, and of course, YouTube Stack. And my favorite, Twitter. We're on Twitter. I like to respond to Peter Schiff on Twitter. Okay. I actually haven't checked him out today. I need to go see what he's talking about. I think if Bitcoin goes to zero, it's Peter Schiff's fault.
Yes.
Absolutely.
He has gone ahead and lobbied the central banks and the government.
Hey man, listen, Peter Schiff is in there. He's the conductor of that train, man. Okay, and he's throwing everything he can at Bitcoin. He's shorting it for no reason, whatever the case might be. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an awesome one. Any final thoughts down below?
Hey, I'm looking at our social tags here, and I'm like, man, those are all centralized. We can't wait to join the decentralized workspace.
They are all centralized. They're also now actually speaking of centralized things. There is a social media app called Getter,
Hmm.
and apparently they're supposed to be better towards censorship and things like that. Joe Rogan is on it. We gotta create an account on there, and
Yes, sir.
maybe soon we'll show up on Odyssey,
Yes, sir.
which we hope is decentralized, and yeah, we'll just keep trying to decentralize things, I guess.
America, baby, America.
America. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, brazen out.
Double O out.